All right, there we go. Recording has started. All right, good morning. It is Tuesday, November, what, 5th? Hey, today's election day, isn't it? Get out and vote? Is it to get out and vote today? Yeah. Is it?
Yeah.
All right, happy election day. And we're in geometry class at the Washington State School for the Blind first period. And we're going to go through a little bit of section 4-1 about parallel lines, and then we're going to jump forward. I'm not a real big fan of how this particular book launches into parallel lines and then throws planes at you before we just kind of deal with the lines and transversals. So we'll talk about parallel lines briefly, and then we're going to jump forward to 4-2 and discuss transversals and parallel lines, which is really the meat of this chapter, this particular chapter. So I would like you on page 142 in Braille. It's probably 142 straight up. You got it already? Yep, 142 parallel lines and planes. Yep. And it starts out with the good old what do you learn, right? And then it launches into kind of a interesting, it has a picture in the book of the National Gallery of Art.
Yeah, I don't see it.
And they didn't give you the picture. They nixed the picture for you. But they do have a picture in the book of the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. And the National Gallery of Art has columns. Have you ever experienced those columns on a building? Do you know what those are?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You, Bryant, what are they? What are columns on a building?
Pillars.
How would you describe them?
Pillars. Kind of around.
I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
Um,
Angelica's saying they're like pillars. That's another name for it. What is
Okay.
it? What's the shape of columns? Do you know what a
Circular.
It's a cylinder. It's circular. Yeah. Abby, have you ever experienced a column on a building? No? Okay. So imagine, if you will, I'm gonna take a pen, but like a big pen, Abby. And it goes up and down. Just hold it and then feel it up and down. That's a column, but in really, really big format. And they put them on the fronts of buildings. All right, Jessica, have you seen columns before?
What?
Columns? Have you ever experienced columns before?
I have.
Yeah.
Is that on? Oh, in the middle.
Oh, you
Yeah.
know what? Hey, I didn't even look forward. Hey, look at that. They did put a drawing in there. Turn the page. I guess I should have looked forward. I always assume they never do the pictures for you, but they did. They did a halfway decent job of a picture. So on 142A, there is a rendition of the building, of the picture of the building, and so you should be able to make out. If you start at the very bottom, there's a linear line, right? You got your line, a line segment, goes back and forth. And they have a couple little arrowheads, but ignore those for right now. And then if you go all the way to the far left, you'll feel two lines, and that's forming one of the columns, is what they're trying to show you, is this round, circular, but they can't show you in a two-dimensional space. And then equally spaced, you go to the right, there's another two lines going vertical up and down, and another column, and then you go to the right again, another two lines forming that makeup of a column, and then you go another two lines, and then now that particular one that we got to, so 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth double line going vertically up and down, they have a line going through it, don't they, with two arrowheads, one at each end, and then you go to the right again, and you're going to find another one, and they have a dotted line going through it, and two arrowheads. Then you go to the right, and you find another rendition of their column. Go to the right, find another one. Go to the right, find another one. Okay? And then if you go up top, so follow up top, you're going to find some lines going horizontally, kind of indicating kind of the top facade part of the building. And then you go up above that, and you have the roof line. You've experienced that before, yes, when you look at little renditions of two-dimensional houses. Okay, so that's the roof line. What they're wanting to focus on in this drawing is those the columns, and they just chose two, that they have these two lines going up and down, And what those two lines are showing, does anyone know what those lines are showing? Are you familiar with that when we have two lines like
Parallel
this?
lines.
Parallel lines, yeah. Parallel.
Which one goes?
The two in the middle, going vertically up and down. Bryant, did you find them?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so that's indicating, it's saying, hey, out there in the real world, there are displays of parallel lines all over the place. And one of the places is at this building with these columns. Now, we have parallel lines happening all around us right now. Just the book in front of you has a bunch of parallel lines going on, doesn't it? The bottom of your page, bottom edge of your page, and the top edge of your page, those line segments, those are parallel lines. If you rub your fingers along the bottom of your page and your fingers along the top, those are parallel to each other. At the sides of the pages, like if you have your book open wide, so don't feel the binding, feel all the way over to the left edge of your far left page, run your hand up and down that page, right? And then run your hand up and down the right-hand side of your farthest right page. Those two line segments of your pages are parallel to each other. What are you thinking about when you kind of notice these kind of versions of parallel lines? We got the parallel lines on our tactile, our drawing of the columns, and then we have parallel lines being represented by the pages of our books. What are you noticing about these lines or line segments? What characteristic would you want to point out about them? What's that, Abby? Well, they're equal? Is that what you're saying? Well, kind of. I mean, yeah, that's okay. You can notice that. That's not a characteristic of a parallel line, but in this case, these line segments, yeah, they're congruent, they're equal. What four parallel line segments will form a square? That's an interesting deduction. All right. What do you think, Brian? What are you noticing about parallel lines or line segments just based upon the pages in our books or these two columns in our tactile?
Well, I know that they never meet at a point.
Yes, so you've learned about parallel lines. That is correct. They never meet, or they never, in geometry terms, Angelica, yes, intersect. They never intersect, do they? They just run along the side of each other, and if you would imagine, if you will, like with those arrowheads on the end of our line, what does that indicate in our tactile?
That continues going.
They continue going into what? Infinity. So they'll continue going into infinity and never, ever, ever touch. The same way with the lines on the edges of our papers. If we imagined those lines having arrowheads on the end of them, those particular lines would go on into infinity and they would never touch, they would never cross, they would never intersect. So that's called parallel lines. And in fact, if you flip the page, so 142B, and find where it says definition of parallel lines. Definition of parallel lines, right in the middle. 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth line down. Find it, Abby? It says definition of parallel lines. You want to read that for us, Abby? Nice and loud and proud.
Lines are parallel if and only if they are in what is that?
The same plane
and do not intersect.
All right, so here we are, fancy definition, Euclidean geometrists, right? Definition of parallel lines. We deduced it ourselves by talking about it and looking at it in the drawing, and Bryant said, well, I kind of already know, but we started going, oh, hey, they kind of go on forever, they don't touch. Then we got to flat out say, what's the definition? Euclidean wrote this down. What's this definition? And so two lines are parallel if and only if. What kind of statement is that when we say if and only if? Angelica's thinking. If and only if. Let me tell you what letter it starts with.
Yeah.
B. What kind of statement? If and only if. By
conditional.
Yes,
Yeah.
by conditional.
Yeah.
Nice. You got to have it both front and backwards, right? We have the statement, and then we could do the converse of the statement. And so it's a biconditional statement. So two lines are parallel if and only if they are in the same plane. So what does that mean? Not a plane flying in the air, right? Same plane. Give me an example of a plane. Your flat surface. What creates a plane, though? What's the definition of a plane way back when from chapter 2? What do you have to form a plane? Angelica's got her brow furrowed. She's thinking.
Lines.
Well, you can have lines to form planes, but what more importantly do you need? You need three things. Three non-collinear points, yeah. Jessica. Yeah, you got to have three non-collinear points. So like our piece of paper, we have at least three non-collinear points, and it created our piece of paper, our braille paper, our page in our book. And then we've got these, and so we have these two lines that are in the same plane and they do not intersect. And so that's the definition of parallel lines. Turn the page, braille users, print users, we're still on the same page right in the middle. And now you have a tactile that's showing you, these lines, and it's showing you some interesting things that you need to make out from that. You're learning the code now, right, of geometry and how to interpret tactiles. So you have a line, your first line that you should encounter. It starts at about 10 o'clock, and there's a point. And can you figure out? And there's a button. That's right. Yeah. Can you figure out what point that is? Point A. Good. And then you follow the line down. Now you're going to encounter another arrowhead right in the midst of the line. Now that's interesting. You have not encountered that before. You've not seen that before. Right? So keep following down to the 4 o'clock position. And you're going to go through another point. What's that label of that point? B. Excellent. Good. They've done a good job with this tactile, haven't they? And then you have another arrowhead. So, you check out that line from 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock. We've got an arrowhead, a point, another arrowhead in the middle, and then a point, and then an arrowhead. That's interesting. All right, well, let's go check out the next line. So just below it, parallel to that line, we get to use the new word. There's another line going from 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Check that out. So we have an arrowhead. We have a point, but what point is this point? Doing okay, Bryant?
Yeah.
Okay, what's this point labeled?
C.
C.
C, good.
And then there's an arrowhead.
There's an arrowhead in the midst again. Now that's interesting. Now don't stop there. Keep following it. Through down to 4 o'clock. Oh, we got point D, Jessica says. That's right, point D. And then an arrowhead. All right. So, all right, how would we name these? Practice your naming of lines. How would you name? There's 4 different ways. Line AB, line CD. Now what's another way to name the lines?
Line BA.
BA.
And DC.
And DC. Good. All right, because we can name lines frontwards and backwards as long as they have both arrowheads, right?
Yes.
What if they only had one arrowhead? What would it be? Array. And how would you name your array?
BA.
BA. Good. If it was the arrowhead on the right that was missing. Good. If it's the arrowhead on the left that was missing, how would you? AB. You name arrays by their what first?
Point.
End point first. Excellent. Okay. All right. So this graphic, this tactile, this picture is showing us 2 parallel lines. These 2 lines in the same plane, and they're parallel to each other. What the code is in drawings for parallel lines sometimes, not always, but most often, is you're going to have these little arrowheads in the middle of them pointing in the same direction, and that's indicating in the picture, even if it feels like the line is slightly skewed and could cross eventually, you have to go off of basing what the picture is giving you, and those 2 little arrowheads, one in each one of the middle of them, is telling you that the lines are parallel. Okay, they're considered parallel with those little arrows in the middle. So that's like a code. Remember you learned about the tick marks a while back when you have one tick arc and another tick arc, the angles are congruent. if you have a tick mark on a line segment, one tick mark and going up and down and another tick mark going up and down, then the line segments are congruent. Well, now when you have arrowheads going through a line, that means the lines, they're not congruent, but they're parallel, okay? Or in words, you will be told that the lines are parallel. So down in symbols, notice they're telling us that these lines are parallel. So here's some new Braille to learn, Braillers. And then print users, you have some new code to learn.
Oh,
So notice all the way down.
the arrow?
Yeah, what's the parallel sign?
Is that ED sign an arrow?
Well, sort of.
Looks like an 11.
Yeah, it's this interesting combination. So notice that it says point A, B. See that right there? And then you have your 1, 2, 6, which is the over indicator, right? That's the put it over indicator. And then the ED, and then a little mini arrow basically is what it's doing. It has an OW, and then a 2, 2, 5, 2, 5, a colon, right? Two of those, and then it has an O. And if you just kind of imagined that, what that is a line, isn't it? It's got an arrow on one side and a little line in the middle and an arrow on the other side. So it's trying to make a rendition of a line. And then it has the terminating symbol, the ER, right? Okay? All right, and then they do the ED and the L. That's what you're seeing. And that means, so line AB, you know that one, right? That reads line AB. And then EDL is the symbol for parallel. So it's saying line AB is parallel. And then they do their dot 5, our multipurpose indicator. And then we have a C, right, and a D. And then our overhead indicator, 1, 2, 6, ED, our little arrow rendition, which is OW, colon, colon, O, and then ER. So that's reading line AB is parallel, EDL, parallel to line CD. Shoo!
That's a long way
That
to
is
do
a
that for
long
Braille.
bit of stuff to do, isn't
For
it?
Braille,
Right.
yeah.
To say that a line is parallel to line. So your new symbol, you've learned about writing the line. You've learned all that mess in the beginning, AB with the over indicator, ED, arrow, ER. Now you're learning the EDL, which is parallel. What's perpendicular? EDP, correct, EDP. So EDL is parallel. That's why they're using L, parallel. They're not going to use P because they use P for perpendicular, so they're going to do the L for parallel, right? That's why, okay? All right. And then they do it again. They show you also that line segment, so A, B, and then we have our over indicator, and then a WH, and then ER. Line segment AB is parallel to line segment, right? Do you see that? CD.
Mm-hmm.
Then line segment array. They're doing array now, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's our array indicator, AB, an over indicator, and then ED, and then an OWER. That means array, doesn't it? ED, OW is array. That's parallel to the other array, CD. And then finally they're doing, if we changed it and had array BA, is parallel to array DC. Now, Angelica, in print, you have your overhead line indicator, right? See how that's an arrow over the AB, and Rahel's got you there.
Yeah.
And then the parallel is two long lines going up and down, and they look like they're parallel, don't
Looks
they?
like a pause button.
Yeah, it looks like a what button? A pause button. Yeah, it looks like a pause button. And that indicates that they're parallel. And that kind of should make sense in symbols, because remember what perpendicular looked like? It was an upside down T, right?
Yep.
Because it looked like a line perpendicular to another line. This looks like two mini lines parallel to each other. Okay, so that's the symbol for parallel. All right?
Right.
That help?
Yep.
Okay. So that's super important that we want to remember about parallel lines. Now I would like us to jump forward, all right? Jump forward in our books. So I would like us to go to page 148. 148. Hopefully there's 147. Uh-oh. Miss Rahel, we need another volume. Oh my goodness. Wow, let's see how far this one goes.
We jumped.
147K. We haven't got to that silly page that's U. Forget what
Yes.
volume that's in. All right, so why we're hell is getting our books. Oh, she's back. Never mind. I was going to
I'll
make you
take
do
that
some
out
review.
later.
All right. Okay, there's a new volume. So, Bryant, we're in volume 12 now.
Alright, I have that.
You have that? Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're learning that you got to have 3 or 4 volumes hanging out next to you.
Yep.
148. And there's a little bit about what do you learn. And so it starts 148 straight up, and it should say 4-2 parallel lines and transversals.
Yeah.
Got it? Yep.
Yep.
All right. Excellent. Okay, and you're on the right page, Angelica. Great. Okay. So now we're going to learn to identify the relationship among pairs of interior and exterior angles formed by 2 parallel lines, and another cool line that we're going to learn about called a transversal. Yes, Jessica, she's been doing this before.
What the heck is
A transversal. Yeah. So it says what was that, Abby? What'd you ask?
What is it?
What is what? What will learn? Did you see that?
No,
Yeah.
the transversal.
Transversal. I know. We'll turn the page. I'll show you.
Definition of transversal.
Aha. And Angelica found it too. But there's a tactile on the next page, 148A. Okay? 148A. All right, you got it.
Turn the page.
Turn the page, 148A. All right, so up there in the top, let's read this first, and then we'll go take a look at our drawing. So in geometry, a line, segment, or ray that intersects 2 or more lines at a different points is called a transversal. Ooh, fancy word. Line AB is an example of a transversal. It intersects line L and M. Note all the different angles that are formed at the points of the intersection. So now let's go take a look at what they told us was going to happen. So you have a tactile below your braille. It's a very nice tactile on this page also. We have 2 parallel lines. Can you make those out? They're running horizontal right in the middle of the page. They labeled those lines to the right, and they chose to label them another way to label lines, right? Can we label our lines with those
Yes.
those bolded
Hyphenated.
or not hyphenated, I mean italicized.
Okay.
Yeah, I grabbed the wrong word too, Jessica. Or not Jessica, Angelica. I know.
I was
get
just
your
kind of
names.
correcting you.
I know. I get your names mixed up sometimes early. All right.
Even if it is
So,
late.
Line L.
Hannah and I get mixed up.
Do you? Yeah. Line M.
One time I was called Hannah in
Is
English
it
class,
L or what?
4th period.
L. It is L. Line L.
Yeah.
So remember from chapter 2 that sometimes lines, they won't have points through them that you name them. They'll have an emphasized lowercase letter above them. And so in print, it's italicized, it's kind of squiggly, and it's line L. And who is that waving at me? Oh, it's Miss Lowell. You were in the dark, Miss Lowell. Hello. We have Miss Lowell. Come on in. This is I don't have my camera on, but Miss Lowell, Miss Branch, Miss Lowell just walked in. She's our other math extraordinaire that does distance teaching. She teaches Algebra 1 and Algebra 2. She actually typically teaches from her home, which is down in Central Oregon.
Yeah, she taught me last year.
Yeah, she taught Abby last year from up in Washington.
And me.
And Bryant, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, and so Miss Lowell is here because she did a field trip yesterday or today? Yesterday with her class. She took them to a fish hatchery dam place or whatever. No, a fish hatchery to learn about all the science and technology that's going on in that arena. And so, hi.
Great. Hello.
Welcome to geometry.
So this is Miss Branch.
Hi.
And she is from Colorado, and she's the distance coordinator in Colorado, and they're going to do professional development on the 22nd of this month.
All right.
And the professional development's going to join the class again. But Miss Branch wanted to join and say, what's going on, and let's test this all out, make sure it all works, and
Nice to
prep
meet
for
you.
that. So, yep.
Nice to meet you too.
What's that? Steve's room is now 2 rooms down from the counseling office. 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right across the line.
Yeah.
Only worked
All
for
right.
5 years.
Alright, nice to meet you.
All right.
Bye, Miss Love.
All right, so remember we can name lines with their italicized letters in print. So this is an italicized L and an italicized M. So in Braille, they do that kind of emphasis indicator for you. Does that make sense? And that's what they're doing. But you can just say line L, so that's the top line. That's the one running west and east, right? Horizontal. And then there's line M. And they're giving us in the givens, right, that lines L and line M are parallel. And then notice there is a line going through these 2 lines from about 2 o'clock to 8 o'clock or so, or maybe 1 o'clock to 7 o'clock. That's the transversal. That's right, Jessica. That is our transversal. And they give that one point, right, because they gave that to us in writing. And our top point is what point? Can you find it? A. Good. And our lower point, our 7 o'clock point, is B. Good. And then they've got 2 arrowheads. So there's going to be now a definition of a transversal. So we have a definition of parallel lines. Now we got to turn the page, and they give us a definition of a transversal. So we're on 148B. Okay. You want to read this one, Jessica?
Sure.
Okay.
It's a transversal if and only if it intersects 2 or more lines, each at a different point.
All right, so let's go back and see how that matches that.
It does.
So in a plane, so we're in our plane of our paper, aren't we? A line is a transversal if and only if it intersects 2 or more lines, each at a different point. So notice it didn't say 2 or more parallel lines. It just said 2 or more lines. Put that in your head. Don't assume that a transversal only has to act upon parallel lines. A transversal can act upon 2 or more lines. We just happen to have 2 parallel lines here. We could have 3 or 10. As long as it's intersecting, right, those 2, it's a transversal. So if it was just a line intersecting another line, that's not a transversal. It's not transversing anything. That's what transversal, you would transverse, you would move, right? You would move from one to the other. So it's not really transversing, it's just intersecting. But when it's going from one line to another, then it's transversing that, all right? So let's turn 2 pages, Braille pages, and then Miss Angelica, we're in the middle of your print page. We got 2 drawings there. You got them?
Yes.
All right. Another very decent tactile on page 148C. We have parallel lines, so that's what it's indicating in your title in Braille up there. It's saying the lines cut by a transversal may or may not be parallel, and here's a set of parallel lines. And so let's practice that skill of checking out those parallel lines. We have a line going from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the top position. Notice it has an arrowhead in the midst of it to the far right, and then it has its final arrowhead at the right. And this is labeled line L again. And then we have a line underneath that, arrowhead on the left, going from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock all the way through, run into an arrowhead, aha, one of those middle arrowheads. What did we learn about one of those middle arrowheads?
It means it's parallel.
It's parallel. That's the code in the drawing for, hey, the top one has one of those arrowheads in the midst of it, and the bottom one has an arrowhead in the midst of it. I have parallel lines. Whether they look like it or not, my drawing is indicating to me that I need to I'm given that those are parallel. And that's line M. Okay, you got that out, Abby? Yeah?
It doesn't have a arrowhead in the middle.
No, okay, so all the way over. Yeah, it's not in the middle, it's just in when I say in the midst, I don't mean in the middle, I just mean it's somewhere on our line is an extra arrowhead, okay? All right, then we have a transversal going from about 11 o'clock to 5 o'clock. Can you find that? All right. Intersecting that top line L, and then it's transversing, heading south through about 5 o'clock, and it's going through the second line, intersecting the second line. And so This is a transversal because it meets that definition.
And it has
right?
a lot of numbers too.
It intersects two or more lines, each at a different point, right? Because two lines intersect where? Only at one point, right? So there it's intersecting that top line L at a point. And then notice that it created, because it said, hey, notice the angles that are being created. So up in the top area where it intersects line L, to the top left, we have angle what?
1.
1. Good. Now go clockwise. What angle do we have? Are you okay, Abby? Yeah, got a little
I
cough.
don't know what my.
Okay.
2.
Go clockwise. What angle do we have?
2.
2. Jessica, what kind of angle is that? What is angle 2 compared to angle 1?
They're both exterior.
They're both exterior angles, yes, but based upon what you've learned in the last chapter, angle 1 is what kind of an angle? Label it, classify it. Acute angle, and angle 2 is
Obtuse.
obtuse. And what are they? They are supplementary. What else are they, Brian?
Adjacent.
They're adjacent. Excellent. Angelica, bring us on home. What are they? What else are they? So they're supplementary. They're adjacent, and what are they finally? Starts with an L.
Linear.
Linear. Good. Excellent. All right. Listen to all this stuff we've learned. Oh my goodness. All right. Then we go clockwise, and we have angle 3. Are 2 and 3 the same thing to each other?
No.
Yeah,
Yes,
they
are.
are, aren't they? Yeah. 2's obtuse, 3's acute. They're linear. They're adjacent.
4
They're
is
supplementary.
obtuse.
And 4 is obtuse.
And 1 is acute.
And it's, oh my gosh, Jessica, you're making my math heart pitter patter. What are vertical angles? Label 2 vertical angles. 2 and 4, and the other pair?
1 and 3.
1 and 3. And now you will make my geometry heart day if you tell me what is the significance of vertical angles. They're congruent. Yes! And on the buzzer, we end with a happy geometry note. All right, that's a lot of information. We had a visitor and needed to do, so Abby. Abby likes when the bell rings in the middle of a lesson. At least we don't have homework. That means we get to finish up tomorrow. All right, please dream parallel lines and transversals this evening. All right.
Or maybe we should say maybe we shouldn't say that we don't have homework because then she might give us some.
Yeah, Brian, you're making a good statement, aren't you? You're making a hypothesis.
I agree with him.
If we say we don't have homework, then we may get some. Your conditional statement is very close to correct, but we probably would have a counterexample to that, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
All right, we'll create a counterexample today. You said we don't have homework, and I'll agree. You don't have homework. So I'll see you tomorrow, and I'm going to publish this video on YouTube in case any of you want to watch and listen to it again or borrow a book tonight and follow along again, all right? And I'll send it also to Stormy, okay? And then we'll finish up with 4.2. We got a lot of new vocabulary and several theorems to go through tomorrow, all right?
Can I
Okay.
really quick and
Yes, you may
call
use
Miss
my phone.
Johnson and tell her I'm going to go to the nursery? Really quick?
Yes, you may.
What's the
All right, I'm going to stop the video.
Okay.
Here we go. Have a nice day, Brian.
Thanks.